Today we've got something different. In lieu of a sermon today, I'm going to have a chat with my friend Mike.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How about you? How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling reasonably good today.
That's great.
Mildly frazzled. I had an interesting morning.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just going to scooch this out of the way so people can actually
Why not?
see your beautiful face. So I know like 23 people named Mike. This is my favorite.
And you're my favorite Eric.
Gosh, isn't that nice? We've got rocking chairs, which is really cool.
I found them in the parlor.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. So you may be wondering who this guy is. Well, I mean, you might be wondering who this guy is. I'm Eric. Hi, nice to meet you. If I haven't met you before, welcome to Trinity. I'm the guy that runs around and jumps and stuff. I met Mike. When did we meet? Like May? 9 months ago. Oh, wow.
I met you 9 months ago.
Right.
We'll get into that later, though.
Right, we will.
Yes.
So Mike is he's a relatively recent addition to Trinity, but he's kind of just like jumped in headfirst, much like I did when I first came here as well.
Jumped in head first, maybe like got pulled in.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. Yeah.
I like
dragged
dipped
him
my
in.
toe in the water and like 1,000 arms reached out and
Right.
grabbed me and like
Tentacles, like one of those squid things. So.
I've never joined a church in a bar before. That was fun.
Yeah. So we were out one night and we got to chatting.
We did.
And this was shortly before I did my last sermon, and so we just got chatting about religion, about how like churches that we respectively go to, and so we were talking about like what we respectively believe about God and about what our religions believe, and so
it was incredible. I'm basically like I'm sitting there in the bar, and I'm just like, so you're an atheist?
Yeah.
And you attend church?
Oh yeah, religiously, yeah.
And then at that point, you were just like, in fact, I'm preaching.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're an atheist.
Yeah.
And you're preaching?
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
I'll be there.
They're cool with it, yeah. It's all good, yeah.
You can't walk away from a story like that. Like, all right, I met this guy, right?
It's a novelty, of course.
Yeah.
So, as Charmaine mentioned last week, like this place is unique. This place is different from basically any other church. It's the kind of place where the only rule is kindness. The only rule. So as long as your intent is toward kindness, as long as your behavior is toward kindness, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation, your religion, your beliefs, your nationality, your race, anything else. It's just kindness.
Which is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in any community, bar none.
Right.
Well done, Trinity.
Isn't that
well
great?
Done.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
I had the blessing of sitting down and talking with your old pastor, Paul, actually, when I was talking about entering discernment. And he described the United Church, and Trinity specifically, as not a creedal church, meaning they're not creeds or confessions or statements of faith that you have to subscribe to be a member. Instead, it's a behavioral church. That's the way he worded it. I really liked that.
Yeah, it's great.
It wasn't my experience growing up.
No. So on that note,
Yeah.
we're very similar in some ways,
We are.
but we're very different in other ways. We come from very different traditions. I grew up in a nominally religious household. One parent was a bit of a religious nut sometimes. The other was just kind of nominally religious. You might actually remember her. She's attended this church before, and that's kind of how I ended up here. Sue Levine was Susan Shepherd at the time. But I was basically an atheist from high school on. I kind of like lost my faith, and I turned into one of those like awful atheist types that would like debate Christians and tell them they're wrong and stupid because they believe fairy tales or whatever. But then things happened. I changed. Mike, on the other hand,
very much the opposite. I was raised in what I would describe as a hyper-Calvinist church. For those of you who don't know, Calvinism is a centuries-old branch of Christianity that has essentially 5 points to it. The first one is the one that's important for you to understand. It's the T in an acronym called TULIP. It stands for total depravity. The idea is that you and all of your children and all of your ancestors and anyone who has ever lived is utterly incapable of the slightest shred of good ever in all circumstances.
Yikes.
We teach this to children in that church.
Yikes, oh yikes.
The theory is the more you hate and detest yourself, the more you will be grateful to God for saving you because of how unworthy and wretched you were.
Ugh.
That's the theory.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, I grew up very well adjusted.
Yeah, oh yeah, that sounds like a very healthy environment.
By the time I'm 19, I look like an absolute... We got a picture, don't we?
We do.
We got a slide. Let's bring that up here.
If you could. Yeah, so there's us as respective angry young men. I'm on the right and he's on the left.
In case you couldn't tell.
It's a little bit
hard to tell.
I mean, it's hard to tell.
Hey, back then, I wore the glasses.
Yeah, and we didn't have any of this stuff.
No.
My goodness.
I look better now.
Yeah.
Laura thinks so, anyway.
Yeah. Long, luxurious hippie here.
Absolutely.
Here's a transformation for you.
Yeah, speaking of Transfiguration Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to get to know me as a person, which is the point of this interview, you need to get to know who that horrible person is, and I promise you're not going to like him. That is a picture that you can actually find on Google, because my name is Googleable. That is my official portrait for when I ran as a federal candidate for the Christian Heritage Party of Canada. Federal election 2006. I was 19 years old. It's the first election I could vote in, and I ran in it on an explicitly homophobic, transphobic platform.
Cringe.
Boo. Yeah. Please boo that.
Very boo.
Please boo that.
So
Yeah.
I remember, you got some media coverage, right?
I sure did.
Yeah, so I have this vague memory of having, heard of this guy, seen him or heard him say some truly heinous stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then, driving in the country near the riding he was running in, and seeing the signs and being like, yo, fuck that guy.
So like I said, Eric knew me before I knew him.
Yeah.
What I hate about that guy is almost everything. However, it is Transfiguration Sunday.
It is.
And you go from being someone who was intellectually superior to everyone, looking down on people because they thought differently than you did. I came from a position of outright hatred for anyone who was not like me.
Mm-hmm. And even some of the people that were like you.
And even some of the people who were like me. Now here we are both sitting in a church talking to each other in front of a crowd in this church that has a firm certification.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my story is one of tremendous transformation and a great deal of personal growth, which I am proud of, but I do not like seeing that picture.
And me neither of that. Because I can see the rage, the disappointment. The world to that young man there was stupid. Everybody is stupid except for me. Because I know the truth. I have the monopoly on truth. And we say that about a lot of religions, that they have a monopoly on truth. But the same can be true of atheist fundamentalism as well, where I know for sure that there is no God, and I know that you're all wrong because you believe in something different than me. But no, truth is a constructive thing. Truth is the narratives that are told about the way the world is. And whereas the narrative that I was telling myself and that I was absorbing was one of indignation and hatred for all others, and the one that you also were being told and were telling was hatred for all others that were outside of this weird culture that you found yourself in. It's not like that. People love each other. All of you love each other.
Fancy that.
Round of applause for that. There is such a thing as true tolerance, true love. There is no better than, worse than. It's all just difference. And I've had a few experiences that have really awoken me to this. I talked about my first experience with the spiritual experience, my first experience of God last Transfiguration Sunday, right here in this space, in which I talked about a magical adventure that I had in the park across the street, where all my life, I had been talked about God, told me about like asking Jesus to come live in my heart and be full of the Spirit and stuff, and I didn't get it. I didn't believe it because I'd never felt it. But then I felt it.
Amen.
And like being full of that, as was in the scripture, where Jesus is transformed and his friends who went up the mountain with him are transformed by this experience, that's what can change a person. That's what can transform and transfigure someone from someone like that to someone like us.
You and I would have been sworn blood enemies when we first met.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We would have just hated each other.
The fact that you and I are sitting here together as like best friends is one of the most beautiful stories of redemption I could ever think of. Mm-hmm. It's better than I could ever imagine. There is something that I want to make crystal clear. My father is an elder in the churches that I left. My grandfather was an elder. My great-grandfather was a pastor in the churches that I left. Me walking away from that community breaks over 4 generations of conditioning to get out of it. I'm trying to get my kids out now. They still have them, but I'm trying. That said, it can be easy, coming from a spirit of grace, to look at that guy and see the ugliness, but then look at me and go, you couldn't have known better. Right? And I, well, you've grown, and well, your parents and your whole family and your whole listen, one of the most beautiful things about the story of redemption is that it doesn't provide excuses, it provides forgiveness.
Right.
And that has been the single most humbling thing for me to experience.
Yeah. Because, like, the same with me, where, like, my position was a reasoned one to some degree, but on some other level, it was not reasoned at all. It was a sense. It was driven emotionally by this like hatred for the rest of the world. But I had the choice. On some level, I had the choice. For me, it was that transformational experience and just like a falling of the scales from my eyes. What was it for you? What was it that led you to a new way of living?
I got sick.
Yeah.
So, the mental illness, it's PTSD, can't imagine why. And
totally
as well as the associated, depression, ADHD thrown in for good measure, which makes everything else hard to treat.
Yeah, samesies.
When specifically men in this organization I grew up in get mentally ill, they turn on you. Right. Because you can't get sick because you have to be the head of your household, and you have to be the spiritual leader for your family, and you have to financially provide for your family, and that didn't end well. Yeah. And I tried Calvinism in 2 different forms, the Dutch one I was raised in, moved to the Scottish one. They're in the process right now of excommunicating me, actually, which is a sign that they don't like my faith anymore, and that's one of the best accolades I could ever get.
Congratulations on your excommunication.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
But where was I going with that? What was I saying?
The impetus behind your transformation. What was it that brought you towards greater health?
If they had not turned on me, I would have had no reason to look elsewhere for companionship and fellowship and affection. And when they did, that was my first time being basically like thrown into the company of people that I was raised to hate from birth, and they caught me, and they treated me with grace and with this beauty and patience as they came alongside me and walked with me through my mental illness, told me for the first time in my life that I was worth loving and caring about with or without my performance. That lesson shattered the idea that there is no goodness outside the church I was raised in. And it also showed me that there is so much tremendous beauty out there, and it made me start asking questions. This journey is 8-9 years.
Yeah.
Got really, really quick in the last 1 year.
Yep.
Because as things continued to get worse, my marriage fell apart, and I ended up needing to fall back on supportive, compassionate people more than I've ever had to before. And you guys have been wonderful.
Yay. So through social science, we know that it's damn near impossible to change worldview. Because worldview is an aesthetic judgment. It's not a reasoned position, as I mentioned. Like, you can't explain to somebody why their favorite painting is actually ugly by explaining art theory at them. It just doesn't work. There's two different monsters. The only way
Calvinism tried.
Yeah, well, they do try. The only way that you can really change things is by experiencing it, by feeling it yourself. And sometimes these transformations, sometimes these worldview changes take the form of trauma. Like, they can be dramatically painful, and that's what you experienced there, where like it was this trauma not only that you had endured your whole life, but also a trauma that became very distinct, that sliced through the regularity of your life and the culture that you'd grown up in. And same with me, like this realization of what a jackass I had been my whole life. I felt awful, just awful about it. Because I'd been mean to so many people. I had alienated myself from so many folks that I could have loved, I could have been part of. I could have joined this church. Like, my mom invited me to join this church many, many years before I actually did. And I said, no, who needs that? That's just silly stuff. But it wasn't until I experienced it, saw the love, saw the way that life could be, that I actually started coming to this place. And it's just so, I'm just so happy for you. I'm just so happy for you.
I'm happy for you too, Eric.
Gosh, this is great. This is just sweet.
Are we adorable? Are we adorable?
Are we adorable? And these guys are adorable too. So you mentioned a little earlier, you're looking at discernment.
I am.
Yeah. So discernment, if you're not aware, is the process by which in the United Church you pursue the path towards ministry. So you discover if the Spirit is within you, if you're hearing the call to worship, the ministry. So that's an ongoing process. We watched Charmaine go through it through here, because Charmaine has been a member of this church for about as long as I have. And so we watched her go through discernment, and then her internship, and then she moved away for a while, and now she's our minister. We may be witnessing the beginning of a new journey here with Mike.
It's like, one of my favorite pictures of Jesus is the one of him knocking on the door.
Ah.
A representation of love inviting itself to come into your life. That didn't really happen to me because it implies that Jesus and his love knocked on the door of my life.
Okay.
He battering rammed his way in.
Barging the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely. The tremendous amount of trauma that I had to pretend was not the spirit of love making its way into my life before I finally admitted it. And now, as I look at discernment, the only question that is relevant to me is this incredible joy and love that I feel within in my life right now, not only just from within myself, but from the people around me. How do I share that with people?
Right. How do you bring more people?
How do I let others know that you are good enough the way you are? That you don't have to perform for love. I'm having this conversation with my kids now, because my kids, whenever I have visits with them, they're telling me things like, oh, it's really hard to be a Christian. It's really hard to be, loved by God because of all these things that are on there. And I'm just like... So, in the Bible, God describes himself toward his people as a parent, right? Mother, father. Like that's loving parent. And when I had this conversation with my 7-year-old, and she was having this thing inside of her, she's just like, but it's so hard and everything else. I'm just like, listen, you're my daughter, right? She goes, yes. I said, I'm your father, yes. Is it hard for you to be loved by me, or are you just my daughter and it just kind of happens? And she goes, well, you're my dad, you just love me because you're my dad. And I go, uh-huh. And God?
Who is also a loving parent?
I'm not exaggerating. She's sitting in the back seat of my car, and I see her shoulders raise a little bit. She starts crying. She's that happy.
Yeah.
It was just this thing that just lifted off of her. And I want to do that for all of my kids, and I want to do it for everybody that I meet.
Absolutely. Oh, that's touching. and I've met a couple of your kids now.
Yeah.
And they're great kids. I really like your kids.
I have never been able to bring them to a worship service yet, but if things go well, we're going to bring them to pancake supper.
Oh, that'd be fun.
So that'll be great.
Have a little communion with the kids.
One-on-one, I've brought, like, just to show them the building or whatever, I brought Kiana. That's my 7-year-old. I brought Kiana here, and she ran around the building, and she played on Rodney's drums, which was amazing. And then she came up to me afterward, and she kind of went, "I like your church better."
We've got art. We've got candles. We've got music.
Oh, yeah, for those of you who don't know, buildings are built differently in Protestant Calvinist churches. There's no stained glass, there's no candles, there's no artwork, there's nothing. Because all of that is supposed to be a distraction, theoretically, from the only reason why you're there, which is to remember how sinful and wretched you are so that God is made greater.
Right.
And Protestants.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, Methodism, which is the like, this used to be a Methodist church before the United Church existed. Also a Protestant denomination, but more about the method, like being a Christian, embodying love. And so beauty is part of the experience of love. And that's, like, I really enjoy services here because it is an experience of beauty. It's a joyful thing where whenever I leave here, I'm just full of the Spirit. I'm full of joy. And I hope that all of you are also of that mind, that you experience that. So I am looking forward to next Sunday because Mike is going to be preaching for you. He's got a message to share.
First Sunday in Lent.
Yes.
Meaning that the scripture passage is going to be about Jesus in the wilderness. Right. I wonder if I can make that relevant.
Maybe it's a little bit of personal relevance there, yeah. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. And I think this is the first episode of our podcast.
Might be.
Yeah. Okay.
Might be.
Yeah, we're going to have a little podcast here.
Because you might be thinking about joining me on my journey of discernment.
Well, maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah. It's a process of discernment.
It is, isn't it?
So I shall discern whether that's in the future.
I just love the idea of, like, an atheist pastor and, like, a more literal Bible reading pastor, and the two of us having a podcast together and be like, well, what do you think the passage means?
Yeah. Could be some interesting analysis there.
I think that might be the whitest thing you and I have just said.
Oh, extremely. Yeah. We got to work on that.
We do.
But you know. So yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. I've heard the call a few times. Folks have mentioned that I should look into it because, you know, I really enjoy giving the sermons. Like I just pulled out my sermon from last year from Mount Zion. Really enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun.
Are you questioning whether you are called to this, or are you just questioning how you might be?
How? I think it's how, because...
I was going to say, if it's whether, listen, can somebody bang their hands together if they think this guy should be a minister?
Thanks for your vote of confidence. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Pressure.
No, I don't feel pressure. No. Yeah, it's for me, it's like how, because I don't think I can do it in the same way that Charmaine can. There's got to be a path for it, for me, because I too experience mental illness. We have that in common. Like, I fall into depression pretty easily and pretty suddenly. And when I hit one of those phases, it's just like that. And it's like getting a cold, kind of, where, like, I'll just be useless for several days at a time. Where all I can actually do is just lumber from my bed to the computer, play games for 8, 10, 12 hours, lumber back to my bed, and that's it. So my path forward is going to have to take that into account. It's gotten better. Like, I've got good meds now, and I'm making improvements through this transformative process. Certainly before my first spiritual experience, it was a lot worse than this. Now I'm starting to get a handle on things. But it's a long path forward, and I think for both of us, like, there's going to be a lot of further transformation that's going to be necessary.
Oh yeah, growth never stops.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, that's part of the human experience.
It is, yeah. And for all of you as well, like, this transformation process, I'm sure you're also going through transitions, transformations, transfigurations of your own in your lives every day. Life continues. People get older, people die, people are born. There's always transformations in this world. And so, as we come to a close here,
yeah.
I would encourage all of you to consider how far you've come, where you were in your life, and where you are now. Because there's probably a point or two in your life where everything changed. And those are the experiences that you really need to value, you really need to pay attention to, because they're the pivotal moments of your life that dictate where you're going next.
I would argue especially if those moments were painful.
Yeah, especially if they were painful. Especially if they were unexpected. Or not what you wanted. Because sometimes that can be what you need. And the transformations to come.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah. We've got a lot of minds to change. We've got a whole world to change. Because we're in some rough places right now. The world is suffering. There is so much in the world that is not right, that could be better. And we can make it better. We will make it better. Both our work here, your work out there, the work of the greater church, the work of the greater world, the people that are involved in every aspect of society that can improve things. Do you have any parting words?
You said it really well. I want to just say, I think that we can change the world by loving it. Because I would not have been condemned or rebuked into becoming a better person. I would not have been opposed into becoming a better person. It's when I did fall and when I was broken, in that moment, I could have been rebuked or condemned or serves you righted into becoming a bitter, awful person.
Right.
Instead, I was loved into becoming someone that I can look in the mirror without shame today.
That's great.
So, go love the world into a better world.
Yeah. Be gone, angry young men. Be
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, get that slide off of there. I don't want to look at it. And let all God's people say amen.